So the children of Israel had just been delivered out of Egypt with God's mighty right arm. God delivers them, sending the 10 plagues to Egypt, shutting down the kingdom of Pharaoh and his army, proving that God is sovereign and all-powerful and all the things. He delivers his people and he brings them into what we know as the wilderness experience. Now, God actually instructs them to go this way, and he intentionally does this. He strategically does this, and we see that God does this for a purpose. He is reorienting their mindset, recalibrating their heart condition, and establishing their faith. And this wilderness classroom is absolutely necessary. And we see this through their 40 years of wandering. There were many things that took place during this wilderness class. While God did send them a certain way so that they could have an opportunity to grow in their connection with Christ, grow in their relationship with him, and grow in their faith so that they could conquer the lands that God was sending them to, the promised land. That promised land was going to be bound to be only for a prepared people. So essentially, it's like an open house at a college. Everyone gets to go in, but everyone doesn't stay, endure, and gets promoted. Everyone doesn't graduate. It was the same with the children of Israel in the wilderness classroom. Many of them refused to get the lessons that they were supposed to get. Initially, it was that, like summer slide, if you will. You educators out there know what I'm talking about. The first couple of months where you're just kind of backtracking and trying to get students up to where they're supposed to be, back to ground zero, right? A lot of the students refused to get to ground zero. They refused to get their headspace, their mindset out of Egypt. They were too busy daydreaming about what was in the past, looking in the rearview mirror, and eventually they just crashed. They crashed out, and they ended up being kicked out of this promised situation. And we see that over and over again, like when they requested that chicken, that Don Julio, stay out of Popeyes, okay? Secondly, you had a group of people that refused to get the new lesson. They were just stuck in their old way. They say you can't teach an old dog new trick, but these were not dogs. These were God's chosen nation. God had redeemed them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he was choosing them yet again, re-choosing, if you will, this nation state to represent him. And the only reason why God chose them is because he needed a prototype to represent what the world should look like. He chose a person, Abraham, made him into a nation, and chose that nation to represent what it meant to be under the covering of God, but also within the laws of God. This is why Israel was taught the law and the wilderness experience. All right, guys, so let's get back to this wilderness class, because there was a third thing that happened also. There were people that not only did not want to learn the law, but also didn't have the faith in the God that was teaching them this new law. There were lots of isms and schisms happening in the play. You may be familiar with one where everyone was holy. You remember that situation? Like, everybody can't be holy if God chose Moses and Aaron. Go sit down. All right, so wilderness classroom guide. How does this relate to us today? Well, God is taking every one of us, each and every one of us, through a wilderness experience. And a lot of times the length of that wilderness classroom session will be determined by you. Of course, God is ruling, regulating, right, and stipulating in your life as Lord of Lords and King of Kings, and you being submitted to that, giving him permission to do that. But the sooner you learn, guys, the quicker you can graduate and be promoted to the thing that God has called you to be promoted to. Get promoted to the promised land. And it's simple, guys. Get back into relationship with the Lord by repenting, turning from your wicked ways, accepting Yeshua the Messiah, BKA Jesus Christ, into your heart as Lord and Savior. And then get into the Bible, our basic instructions before living eternally, and literally allow God to transform your hearts by the renewing of your mind. Forget what you knew. Forget what you heard. Start getting to know the God that you will serve for all eternity. That is, if you plan to serve him for all eternity.
God, you taught me to trust you. You show me how to believe.